This is episode 24 of Mind Your Job. I'm going to give it to Sam in a second, but I'm not even going to do a shameless plug for a book today. I just want to make a comment to people to remind them self-care is not a bad thing. It's very, very important for people.
Yeah.
I just got back from a week away. It was incredibly mentally unwinding for me. And it's very important that people take time to not do the same thing every day so that you can create that creativity within yourself. Today, we're going to talk to an amazing human being, Linda Harvey. She is the compliance expert to the stars. She's going to tell us a little bit more about like things we should be looking for in offices and how that might relate to overall recruiting and where people want to work. Take it away, Sam.
Hi, well, thank you. Well, good morning. Hi, Linda. I wanted to start by just kind of asking you, how did you find your way into dental compliance? How did you find your niche there?
What a great question, Sam. And thank you both for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I'm especially excited because June marks the Healthcare Risk Management Week. And so I'm celebrating myself all week, if you can say that, so to speak. So healthcare and risk management were two things, I never thought I was going to put together, much less compliance. But back when I was a younger hygienist, I was looking to expand my horizons much before everybody was doing that now and move beyond the four walls of an operatory. So I went to work in medicine for about 13 years. And that's where I got introduced to risk management, received my formal training, and just got my boots on the ground experience on the medical side. And then I left there and to move into the broad world of consulting, and just compliance and risk management go hand in hand. So that's the story ever since.
So how would you say compliance in the dental industry has changed in the last 5 to 10 years or so?
It's definitely gotten more complex because of the changing laws and rules. And when you couple that with the changing technology in our practices, and also the changing and how that's affected infection control, even just as far as technology and infection control. But those types of things keep us on our toes, because while the technology brings better care, enhanced patient outcomes, and so forth, it can also bring risks that we don't know about. So it's important to stay abreast of all aspects of that, because even though we're jumping to the next new thing for healthcare, oh, this is faster, this is easier, this is painless, we still have to know how to operate that piece of equipment safely so we don't have any patient injury or patient harm or harm to ourselves.
Yeah. So would you say, like, are there any regulations that you feel are misunderstood or just need to be, put a little point of clarification or perhaps ignored in the dental field?
Oh, Sam, yes, there's quite a few. The first reaction of dentistry when a new regulation is published from the federal government is, this doesn't apply to us. This can't apply to us. It's too constrictive. It's too overbearing. So, going back to the HIPAA laws, which were the privacy rule and the security rule, both became effective in the early 2000s. It was years before dentistry really got on board to understand what that meant. Now, there was a few forerunners, and of course the ADA had manuals to buy, and everybody had compliance programs. We did, so did many others. But even today, they want to just call it a checkbox. So even just putting HIPAA aside, Sam, thinking of all the other regulations that apply to a dental practice, whether it's an organization or private practice or group practice, the laws apply to everybody. It's important not to look at it like a checkbox. It's, oh, we just got our annual training, check. But does your team really understand what that means? Can they protect themselves? If you had an investigation, could they answer any questions? Or do they just sit there on autopilot with their phone while the recorded training was playing?
Right. So bouncing off that then, so if there is a smaller practice, they're not a DSO, they're a private practice, they have limited time, budget, things like that to really focus on compliance. Where should they focus their compliance energy first?
They should focus their compliance energy on anything that's going to cause harm in the practice, patients and staff. So compliance energy, definitely sterilization, infection control, number one. And after that comes all the other laws that play off of that. The OSHA bloodborne pathogen standard and all the other OSHA laws, because there are regulators there in some states, about 22, have their own OSHA approved plan and are very active about investigating offices and inspecting them randomly. Tennessee, California, and a few to name some. So going to be prepared for those things. There's no HIPAA inspector that's going to walk onto your doorway and come and inspect you, but certainly you might get a letter from the Office of Civil Rights, and those are the main two. But coming some other things that we're not aware of that have been laws for several years is the 21st Century Cures Act. That requires interoperability and being able to give patients a copy of their records through a portal, which we're not able to do in dentistry. So there's compliance deadlines and big fines coming this year. So I think that's going to be a shocker for a lot of practices because they look to their IT or they look to their software company and say, you know, you're not making me compliant, because they always think somebody else makes them compliant, and they need to understand more of the laws themselves.
With what you just said, it's very interesting because I see a lot of people trying to get records, and I always say make them sign a form. They're not having them fill out a form. Someone at the office is just like writing on a scrap of paper and eventually getting it to them. There's a whole thing with the form, right? For having someone fill it out and sign it and write who's actual, like usually a family belongs to a whole dental group.
Yeah.
So which person in the family's records are we looking for? When they need them by, all those things, because is it 15 days now or 30 that they have to get the
It's
records?
30 by federal law, but some state dental practice acts are shorter, so it's important that you know that law because that would be the more stringent one you'd have to follow. So to your point, Sari, about filling out a records request or a transfer of records, certainly the best defense and the best way is to have something in writing. But when we have that request and we require the patient to fill out a form for their records, we have to be sure that it's not causing, it's not blocking their access to them. We're not doing something that's unreasonable. So for example, if you email me a form and say, oh, Linda, just print this out, sign it, and fax it back to us, and I can't do it because I don't have a fax machine, I don't have a printer, you know, I don't know how to do that techie thing, maybe, you know, whatever. But if you send me a link on my phone, just like our medical counterparts do, and I can fill it out there and you get it all back really quickly and it comes in seamlessly, that's not obtrusive and that's not an obstruction to getting my records.
Can you charge people for their records?
You can, but you can only it's only based on cost. So the cost would be, you know, did you use a flash drive? You know, some very simple administrative cost, you know, but you really can't have a set fee anymore of $25 or $35 or $50. And you especially can't charge the patient a fee that would be equal to an unpaid balance. So the best, cleanest approach, Sari and Sam, is just not to charge patients for their records. Send it over to them because we can do this digitally. You can't charge if it's you're sending information digitally. No.
So my next question involves a phrase that Sari cannot stand. I know she hears it sometimes doing her own consulting work in dentistry, but are you ready?
Okay.
My question is, how do you advise practice owners who handle a seasoned team member and like a hygienist or an assistant? They've been there for 20 years or whatever it is. Compliance has changed, whatnot, but they say, but we've always done it this way.
You know, that's like grading chalk on a chalkboard, isn't it, Sari? That's like the chalk on the chalkboard, right? We've always done it this way.
My teeth hurt right now.
I was preparing her. Always done it this way. So how do you advise them to be like, you got to take them by the shoulders and say, all right, you did, but not anymore.
That's exactly it. So knowing the personality of the individual and how to approach them is number one step, okay? Because everybody's different. As soon as you want to come at them and say, you're wrong, we can't do it that way, and you know, have an inappropriate approach that doesn't elicit teamwork and collaboration. Say, that's great. What we learned in school at the time was current. However, you know, we've had all these changes and scheduling things like lunch and learns from some of the reps, ensure that individual, if it's a hygienist, is taking live CE courses so they hear what other experts are saying. And maybe they're not interacting with peers. You know, they're not going to meetings and whatnot.
Right.
So we want to be cautious about what we learn on the halls of social media, of course. Some is accurate, some is not. So we want to make sure we dispel any myths there or incorrect information.
So you brought up a good point. Social media in terms of learning or understanding the changes. I follow several practices, dentists, whoever on social media who have phenomenal TikToks or Instagram stories or whatever it is. They're engaging, they're fun, they teach us about the dental industry. What is something that they should be aware of when filming in order to not break compliance or protocol?
Oh, that's such a good question, because every time I look at and I'm going to evaluate a client's website for compliance with HIPAA, the American with Disabilities Act, and the Federal Trade Commission, I see photos and videos that are non-compliant. And by that, I mean they show them standing in the operatory with a mask on, their hair's down, And this could be the doctor sometimes, right? No glasses, no gloves. Why are you wearing the mask if you're just talking to the patient? If it's just meant to be like a couch, you're having a conversation with the patient in the operatory, but if you're sitting there and you're treating the patient, then by all means, you should have on your mask and glasses. And I've seen particularly male dentists in the past be wearing a nice Oxford shirt in days gone by with the cuffs rolled up. So it looks like you're going to be sitting at your desk, doing paperwork, and there you are in a faux environment because you're faking that you're doing the care. But if you're going to fake it, which is usually what you're doing, there's a couple of things you have to bear in mind. One is, and by fake it, I mean stage it. When you're staging photos in your practice, one is you want to be sure that you have written permission from every patient that's participating. So on your HIPAA binder, you should have a marketing authorization form. And two, even if they're employees, they are patients in the practice. So it's a good idea to even have one filled out for them. And then three, make sure everything is compliant, proper PPE. It's not about seeing your smiling face or your assistant's smiling face or the hygienist. It's about seeing what's right to showcase your practice in the best light.
And a lot of videos that I see, and I have clients that do this, I will literally call them and say, take the video with you and your scrub top down. And they're like, but why? And I'm like, you're not supposed to have your arms exposed. And they're like, really? I'm like, no, long sleeve shirt or put your coat on. And if you're filming, you should put your coat on anyway, because it gives you that authority that you're a doctor and that you graduated and got white coated.
Optics.
Yeah.
I go holistic.
Well, they're not thinking about it. They invest all this money. Marketing companies aren't compliance oriented because they don't know OSHA, they don't know infection control. But I've worked with numerous national dental associations looking at photos that they take during a photo shoot, and sometimes live, where they take a picture, they text it to us real quick, and we say, hey, this is wrong, this is right. For example, one of them with a well-known organization, they were taking a photo shoot, and they were showing the assistant doing something at the sink, like maybe rinsing instruments or not scrubbing, because you can't scrub, but you could see the eye wash station, and you could tell it was mounted backwards. So even they probably didn't know in their own practice, this private practice where this association was shooting, that something like that happened.
Can you give me a little eye wash? Because eye wash has become a hot topic for a lot of people. Where I've gone into offices and I'm like, okay, do you guys have a log for your eye wash? And they're like, what? Or do you guys know about the new eye wash changes that you're not allowed to have the flip up thing? It's got to be on its own thing. Can you crystallize a little bit of that for us and tell us a little bit about what has gone on with the eye wash?
Absolutely. The standards have changed in the past few years, maybe 5-ish now. I'd have to go back and check for sure. But it's always required to be hands-free. So it has to be hands-free. So you can't hold a hose. And there's one brand, which I won't say the name, that's a hose that you can pick up and it could spray your face. But it has to be hands-free and has to deliver tepid water, not hot water, because you don't want it to be on that side if you've got it plumb. If you have it plumb to the cold side, that's even better. But some offices are set up without thinking about that. So what they do is they use the smaller one that attaches onto the base of not the base, but the faucet. You remove the ring and put that on, but you need to make sure it's coming out. Make sure you keep it capped. You're checking it weekly, like you said, Sari, and you should flush it for 10 to 15 minutes because amoeba and bacteria can build up in those things. It's not like diluting at water lines. We're not going to get the same bacteria. But that being said, it's used so infrequently that when you need it, you don't want any bacteria in there shooting in your eye first when your eye is already damaged.
Metal.
Metal.
There is metal to those in the bottom of those
those little rings.
Yeah, in the bottoms of those little mesh
screens.
Yep.
Right, the screens. There's metal in there. And I've seen them installed in labs and they lose the little protective caps and there's this crust of, plaster all over it. And you can buy additional, caps for those, and they don't have the right signage sometimes. And oftentimes, when they remodel, they put in what I call fancy faucets, meaning it's a nice spray on the faucet nozzle is a spray at the end, just like we have at home. And that's great if you're doing some quick rinse of something, but it's not qualifying. It does not constitute a bona fide eye wash station, and you would get a fine.
So if one of our viewers or listeners is watching this right now, and they're starting to get some anxiety of, oh my gosh, am I doing this right? Oh my gosh, what are the first 3 things they should check in their office before they leave today?
Well, the first 3 things. All right. So let's talk about them in different categories, if you don't mind. So general safety, make sure that your fire extinguishers are up to date and that your exit paths are not blocked. I've seen so many offices where the back door, that's where they pile up all the boxes in the trash, and it's blocked for a while. And I've been in some offices that have multiple exit pathways, and I'm thinking of one in particular. It's lesser used, but still it's an exit, and they use it as a storage center. So you can only get out single file, supposed to be 27 inches wide, according to the OSHA standards, and making sure that you can exit easily. Okay, so the fire extinguishers and that for safety, right? And then also when it comes to infection control, are you monitoring your sterilizers? Are you going through the proper sterilization processes according to the Centers for Disease Control? Are you monitoring and testing your delineated order lines? That is a must. There's 2 states that require that, and it's Georgia and Washington State, but it is a standard of care. So if you transmit disease to a patient in dental practice because your sterilization process was off or your water lines were unsafe and they were contaminated with bacteria, then that opens you up to a Board of Dentistry complaint and also lawsuits.
So this is actually printed this question out because it's a long one, but I think it's a literal and figurative $1 million question.
Okay, ready? I'm ready. Okay.
If a practice owner invests heavily in building a bulletproof compliance system, what does that look like in terms of long-term ROI? And how does it save them money or even increase the valuation of their practice if they want to sell it?
Oh my gosh, I would love to see a bulletproof infection control practice. I think that's great. So when I hear those words, I think of a practice that's been remodeled, or it's a new practice. They have state-of-the-art infection control. They have state-of-the-art sterilization center, which usually encompasses, an instrument washer these days, right? And then they've got plenty of sterilizers, not just one that they're limping along with, one old one that's got rust around the doors and everything, but they have up-to-date equipment, and the flow is easy, so you're not cramped. A lot of times in a dental practice, the sterilization area gets cramped with space, so we don't have the luxury of having a clean and a dirty sink. So oftentimes that eye wash station is mounted on a sink where dirty instruments are, which is not ideal. So, and same thing in a lab, it's dirty. We don't have a place to really put it where it's clean. So that being said, I see this kind of like state-of-the-art sterilization center where there's room to work and the workflow is proper. And you're going from, direct one direction. You're not back and forth between cross-contamination between clean and dirty and everything. Mm-hmm. And then they have all their policies and procedures. They have someone who's been designated as the infection control or the OSHA coordinator, whatever title they want to use. And that person has had the opportunity to have additional training. Maybe they're a member of the Association for Dental Safety, or they go to the boot camp and they attend those types of meetings to really get extra educational value out of how to manage that and how to enlighten everyone else. And it's part of the culture. I should have started there, really, Sam. It's part of the culture. This all comes from the leader or leaders of the practice. If safety and culture is important, then you're going to value that first and foremost, because it comes back to you in the ROI of what your patients notice about your practice. They notice this kind of clean feel and look. They see your staff being uniform and how they're wearing PPE, which means they're not wearing their mask under their chin when they pull it down, right?
Right.
And they see what everybody's doing, and it's consistent. So then they value that. And in the long run, you're saving yourself time and energy, because you could be open to lawsuits and complaints at any time in your practice. More so the complaints, right? Or calling a regulator, even if it's a disgruntled team member who calls a regulator because the doctor's turning a blind eye, if you can use another phrase, to sterilization, unless people do what they want, or it's old fashioned. Maybe that's the person saying this is the way we've always done it, right?
Right.
So and if you're passionate about it and you're the assistant or the hygienist or the office manager, and your boss that's their philosophy, then it may be time to change practices.
It's interesting when we send how much feedback I get on, that office was not good. And what wasn't good about it? I don't know. It just seems very chaotic. And then I go, well, I really would like some feedback, because I can help them. We're here to help the offices. We're here to help people get better all the way around the block, whether it's recruiting for them, whether it's helping them clean up their compliance, whether it's getting them a new office, whatever it is. And you have to pay attention to the little things, because the little things are the big things. And this seems like it's not a thing, but I've seen patients actually complain about an instrument looking like it's dirty when it's just old. But that's part of sterilization. You're not looking over the instruments to make sure that the instruments look like that they're, something that you would want in your mouth. Well, do you think the patient would want in their mouth? But the dentists that we're sending over there oftentimes are like, yeah, I wouldn't work for that practice because the practice is, the word I'm thinking of is chaos. It's not organized. I don't even know where I'm supposed to put the sharps when I'm done with them. Like every room is
Oh my
supposed to have a
gosh.
sharps container in
Yes.
each clinical room, and
Yes.
not in sterilization only. And people just still aren't gravitating towards that. That is a huge fine. Just not having that in each clinical room is a big, huge deal. But it also says a lot about your practice. Like you go to the doctor, there's a sharps bin hanging on the wall in every doctor office. Even if that doctor's not giving you a shot, there's still a sharps room.
That's always is. And I think that also when you say chaotic, it comes off as cheap. It's cheap.
Well,
So team members or doctors that are already team member that's trying the office or substitute in the office, they're going to think this is a cheap place. They don't have enough equipment. I don't have to go in here to dispose of sharps. So it gives a negative impression all around.
You hear a lot because of DSO's commoditization of the dental world. And I feel when you don't work on the little things, there's no brand or anything involved with that. Commoditization, whatever. This is how do you want to be treated as a patient if you're the doctor, is how you should be treating your patients. Don't take shortcuts with compliance because it catches up with you in so many ways. It's 6-prong, not even 2-prong. It's your patients. It's the people that work there. It's the compliance people. It's the insurance companies. It's the, everything that's going on there. I mean, HIPAA and OSHA, HIPAA is huge right now for cybersecurity. It's becoming one of the things that they're asking for in the reports is what is your HIPAA protocols? Do you have a security risk assessment?
They can't renew their cyber risk insurance carrier coverage without acknowledging and attesting to that. So either they're lying or either they're compliant. There's only two options.
Right.
It's not a gray. There's no black and gray, black and white. It's black and white.
And I think that people need to hear that, it's not okay to say we're rolling it out. Close your doors if you can't get it done right. You're not helping your people that work for you have faith and trust in you that you're doing the right thing. And your patients, they're not stupid. They know the HIPAA laws. They go to many other doctors besides dental offices to fill out paperwork, to see what's going on. They're not totally clueless. Maybe they're not recognizing it immediately, but they're very aware of what needs to go on because they've been to stuff that's hospital-based. And the hospitals, they're getting clamped down on the worst by the Office of Civil Rights and the HHS to get it done right because there's a bigger spread there of people that they're seeing. The volume's bigger.
I know. Well, when you talk about staffing and employment with team members that are affected, there's going to have greater turnover of staff. And as you know, because you're the expert here, it's quantifiable.
And it's expensive.
We know the doctors that are going to call us back within 6 months to ask us to rehire something. And I can assure you, they're the same ones that need the compliance training. Goes hand in hand.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Linda. We're thrilled that you were able to come on and talk with us.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you. I enjoyed talking about risk management. That's my favorite thing and compliance. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you back. I know you have more stuff to talk about. We can get really into the nitty-gritty.
We'll look forward to that. So we'll absolutely have to.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Mind your job.
Mind your job.